You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, my name is Kevin Weiss.
I'm Ulises Sambrano.
And I am Evan Klosky.
And we are the host of the Locked On Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your very first listen every day. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Locked On Rays, as well as all the other podcasting platforms. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Rays, and email us anytime, lockedonrays@gmail.com. All right, this is a Thursday episode, special edition with Evan Klosky. We'll actually have some baseball trivia and Name That War later on. But first, we have to get to the important matter of the Rays getting off the god-awful 3-game losing streak.
Oh, my God, the horror.
Yeah, the world was literally about to end, I think, at least in the minds of many a Rays fan.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen our new segment called TRG, which is Top Can Reply Guys, Evan. where we tried to not dox anybody.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's so good.
We darkened their profile picture, we darkened their but then we put their asinine comment on the air and just basically make fun of it. And boy, yeah, it would have seemed like they would have lost 13 in a row, right, Evan?
Look, I think people are a little spoiled. I'm doing the math right now. 12, 13. Okay, so they're 52 and 25, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of those 25 losses, I believe 13 are of one run. Like, they're kind of a 500 team in those one run games, and I know a lot of people will be like, I know they should be better, and it's like, excuse me, they are 52 and 25. So even like there are maybe 3 or 4 games that were complete stinkers for this team. Like, it's remarkable. So I really need people to understand it's a 162 game season. Just because they started out 13-0, they have given themselves a lot of grace in the standings, and they don't have to necessarily, as I've said before, beat the 2001 Mariners. That is not the goal here. The goal is to not be a 120-win regular season team. The goal is to win the division, which would ultimately mean they are the best record in the AL and that the playoffs run through the Trop and they get a bye. That's the goal. And going into a 2-game set with the Orioles, it was not the impetus of the Rays to sweep them. It was on the Orioles to sweep. They needed to sweep. They were the ones down 5 games. And guess what? After spending 2 days in St. Pete, they're still down 5 games. That's all the Rays have to do. They just got to – and they have a big 4-game series against the Royals. And I say that because they don't have many cupcakes left on their schedule. The Royals for 7 are certainly cupcakes. And in the grand scheme of things, you would hope you go 6-1 against that team when you add up all 7 games. And especially at home, you have to win 3 of 4. I mean, there's nothing acceptable underneath that. But, coming off the Athletic series, I don't know if a lot of people will have the patience for that.
Yeah, at this point in the power rankings metrics, the Royals are probably below the Athletics, so that should turn the tide in the Rays' favor. Question, Evan. As of today, on the evening of June 21st, if you were to put green Skittles on one MLB team to win the World Series, would it be the Rays or would it be another team? Would it be the Braves or the Rangers or the Diamondbacks or fill in the blank?
I think, and you'd have to check the websites that host a lot of these green Skittles, I believe the Atlanta Braves are still the favorite to win the World Series. And to me, I think this is an unfair question to ask because the trade deadline is going to really drive home where I'm putting them green Skittles. As of like today, if nobody made a change, I would say Braves and Rays are right there. I mean, I'm like, I'm splitting my green Skittles and I'm throwing them on both. But let's get to the deadline, because I truly believe if Baltimore says, screw it, let's go all in, trade for Marcus Stroman, get me another starter, just totally revamp that starting pitching. You tell me who wants to face Cano and Batista in the playoffs down the stretch, and even Colombo. I don't know. I don't know that guy, but that lefty who Margot got a hit off of. He's sick too. So to me, the Orioles have arguably the best pen, which to me, at least they have the best back end of the pen. And to me, that's how you really do damage in the playoffs, is hold your water for 6, give it to the tough guys at the end. I just don't believe you should be throwing out, I don't know, Kyle Gibson as your 1. And
right,
it's just, there's that, to me, that's a scary proposition for the Orioles. To me, they're like where the Rays were a few years ago, and the Rays have progressed into investing in frontline studs. And it's funny, the back line has kind of taken a step back. But I think the Orioles really, starting pitching's not good enough in my eyes to win a World Series.
After seeing them now in 2 different series, 5 games total, is the division, the AL East, between the Rays and the Orioles?
Yes. Conventional thinking wants you to believe that the Blue Jays at some point are going to go on a heater. Like, that lineup to me is too good. But I don't see how this does not come down to Rays and the Orioles. I mean, let's put this in perspective. Like, the Rays are 10 games up on the wild card. Let's just say things get screwy with the Orioles, and the Orioles go on a surge and they pass the Rays. Like, they have such a buffer to still hosting the first series in the playoffs. It would take a ridiculous heater from the Yankees and the Blue Jays to sniff those 2 teams, more so the Rays. And the Orioles can be caught. Those other teams with the Rays, it's like, 10 games. The Rays have to really go on such a skid. They've only lost 3 games in a row once this entire season. Like, how are you going to consistently gain games on them?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it would come down to either Boston or the Yankees or the Jays. I've written off both of those 3 teams. I don't know about you, Kevin. Do you also agree that it's going to be between Baltimore and Tampa Bay?
As of today, absolutely. And we've got more on this topic, Ulises and Evan. But Ulises, I think you have to tell the audience about something extremely, extremely imperative.
It's imperative, Kevin, because when I tell you that my Birddogs are just the best. Evan, look, boys, I went out last Saturday. I was out from 2 p.m. till 4 a.m. on a Saturday. Okay.
What were you doing?
I painted Ybor City red, boys. And you know why I did that? What made me feel so good? I was wearing my Birddogs, people. I went to bars. I went to a beer garden. I went to a club. And everywhere I went, people were saying, those make you look so good. And I said, thank you. These are my Birddogs. And you can get yourself some Birddogs too by going to birddogs.com/lockedonmlb, and you get also a free Yeti style tumbler with your order. So again, go to birddogs.com/lockedonmlb. You get that free Yeti style tumbler, and you're going to get these Birddogs that have anti-stink sweat, make your legs look so good, and you're going to never want to take your Birddogs off. We promise you.
Evan, Ulises, we've been talking about the Rays, the Orioles, the Rays. I've got another question for Evan here. Again, on June 21st, the evening of June 21st, what is the better, more impressive baseball feat in storyline? Is it what the Rays have done throughout this entire season, including the 13-0 start, or the on the rise upstarts and surprises like the Orioles, like the Diamondbacks, like the Marlins, who are 10 games over 500 for the first time since 2011. Am I missing anybody? Those are
the Rangers. Yeah.
The Rangers as well. But I mean, they've been spending money left and right the last couple of years. I'm talking about
the Reds have an 11-game winning streak.
Yeah, the Reds
right
as
now.
well. So what sticks out to you the most?
First off, I don't think anybody. Baltimore is not surprising to me at all. Okay. Last year they were. Last year, I was like, "Whoa, where did this come from?" This year, I think we kind of knew what to expect, and they have some studs hanging around at the minors. They're like Jackson Holiday, Kowser, however, Jordan Westberg. Like their lineup's going to get only stronger. So Jackson Holiday is probably not up this year, but next year Rays fans will need him, I'm sure. Not going to be fun for a long time. But the Reds, I think this is kind of maybe a little bit the year before the year. I mean, it was only a couple of weeks ago I'm out here throwing out trade deals with Cincinnati to grab players. They're firmly like pushing for a playoff spot. And with the amount of young talent they have at hitting, it's like, maybe they're going to be buyers. I don't know. I mean, Cincinnati love their baseball. They just need a team that's not incompetent. And now, like, the energy, you feel it, right? I remember being inside the Trop for the 13-0 run at, like, middle of the week, and that place is packed. Like, all of a sudden, you're going to see Reds fans flooding that ballpark.
Hey, with the promotion of Ellie De La Cruz, that has absolutely turned a corner for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a golf buddy who's not a huge baseball fan. He's more apathetic than anything. But when he saw highlights and was watching Ellie De La Cruz, I mean, he's really there. He's the Reds' Wander Franco, 6'5" Wander Franco on their end of things. He's like,
he's probably
I gotta watch
better
this guy.
O'Neal
I gotta watch
Cruz.
every moment of this guy. Like, he's a game changer.
Yeah, I mean, he's a better version of O'Neal Cruz for the Pirates, who unfortunately is like hopefully coming back soon. I don't know. He had that terrible injury at the beginning of the year. But, yeah, I mean, he's such an exciting player. He's completely transformed that lineup. Goes to show you, like, I think it's ridiculous that they had to hold him back for 2 months. When you insert him right into the 4th spot, it's like, really? He's that good to go immediately into your 4th spot, but he wasn't good enough a month ago? Like, okay, yep, I see that. I see what you're doing. Not like the Rays have never done that before either. But, I think that, the Rays, to me, still are the story of this Major League Baseball season. I think the Reds are very exciting. I don't want to run away with it and be a victim at the moment because the Pirates were exciting too, and they're in a 9-game losing streak. So it's kind of a flip-flop of the Pirates and the Reds of what they're doing.
Yeah.
The Rangers, as you mentioned, they spend a crap ton of money. It's about time they started showing it on the field. I think a big story, honestly, is the incompetency of the Mets and the Padres, the amount of money they have spent and how woeful they are. I have more hope that San Diego will turn it around than the Mets. But I think that's a huge story. Like, the Dodgers aren't winning 112 games this year for the first time. And usually by this time, they're like the best team in the MLB and in Major League Baseball. And it's like them and everybody else, right? That's not really what's happening here. They're fighting with the Giants are surging. So a lot of the big spenders are not doing as well as we thought. And the one big spender who we didn't have high hopes for is actually doing really well. So I think parity has been really the key for this season with the Tampa Bay Rays, the Atlanta Braves, and even the Orioles, and to the Rangers to an extent, being the outliers of the cut above. Everyone's kind of fighting. To me, everyone's fighting against the Rays and the Braves to make it to the World Series. And a lot's got to happen. Trade deadline's going to be crazy. As I said, whoever gets Marcus Stroman, it's going to automatically transform your rotation. But it's tough. It's tough to argue what the Tampa Bay Rays have done and have kept going,
Yeah, because they could have pulled the Pirates, right? They could have just have a tremendous April and then kind of gone downhill, but they are still the best team in MLB. So you can't go wrong with them being the storyline. But I do want to mention something. I know you mentioned it, Evan, but I want to highlight it. Our Florida brethren down there in Miami, man, like what they're doing. And I know before people say, hey, they have a lot of luck because of the 1-run games. They're winning like literally every 1-run game. Fine. Okay. Maybe there's some regression there. They're doing that without Sandy Alcantara, the reigning Cy Young, who has, I think, a 5+ ERA or something like that. I mean, he's struggling. But, of course, I have to mention them because Venezuelan bump, my boy, Luis Arraez, is hitting 400. That's ridiculous.
From an individual story, that is the storyline. It does not get nearly enough love.
No.
It's insane. It's he has 3 5-hit games this month.
Put this guy in a Yankee uniform, in a Cubs uniform, in a Dodgers uniform, and nothing gets talked about except for Luis Arraez. But, of course, in Miami, he doesn't get talked about enough.
And this is the funny part, right? Like the Twins, analytically focused. When you look at him, you look at his hard hit contact, you look at all these peripherals, it's like this guy is due for a serious regression, but he's just a singles machine. Yeah. And that's sometimes where, look, the Twins, I think they're totally fine having Pablo Lopez, by the way. He's been very good for them. But sometimes you get so enamored with the analytics that, and I'm pro analytics, don't get me wrong. Sure. But there are some times where you have to kind of understand who the individual is. And not that anyone would predict 400 out of him, but it is pretty crazy that he's consistently getting base hits. And it's just kind of who he is. He doesn't give a crap about power. He doesn't care about doubles. He's going to get on base. And and that is extremely valuable when you do it at such a consistent clip.
He's also number 1 in on base percentage, Kevin. He's also like a top 10.
You better be if you hit 400. I mean, you're already like your OVP. You get a couple walks in there, and all of a sudden you're close to 500.
So you can't tell me, his on base is online, his OPS, his top 5 or top 10. Like Kevin, what he's doing is just ridiculous.
Yeah, the fact that I'm glad Evan brought all that up is sometimes we get too enamored with the analytics and we have to look at the big picture, take the 30,000 foot view, sort of like with Harold Ramirez. And I know that Harold Ramirez has showcased more power than he has previously, but I don't care about the BABIP. I don't care necessarily about the extra base hits. Wherever this guy plays, whatever uniform you put him on, whatever position you play him, DH, first base, whatever, he's going to wake up and at the end of the season, he's going to have a 280, 285 batting average at least. That's the impression I get with Harold.
And that's valuable. And I understand, like, even entering this season, I think there were rumblings of, hey, we kind of are seeing if we can sell high on Harold. And to me, I actually think the winning formula is pairing up Aranda and Harold and making the lefty-righty split into this mega DH that loves contact. Because to me, Jonathan Aranda is baby Harold Ramirez. And I think if you take, first off, Harold Ramirez is one of the best hitters against lefties, and Aranda is a lefty. So if you can marry them, but what that does is it reduces Harold's, reduces the amount of at-bats for Harold Ramirez. And I don't know if the organization or the fan base believe that's a palatable outcome. But to me, it's very clear that Jonathan Aranda is ready. He's ready for a call-up, at least a chance to prove that he's here. But I understand that the organization's probably just going to hold that spot for Lau and just give Brujan the flexibility. They're going to take the positional flexibility over the better bat.
Don't get me started on the Aranda train, because then we will just have an hour-long episode, because I would just get venting Ulises. But I will say this, just to close out on the Arraez thing. We live in such a funny world. Funny world, boys. And funny, I'm using very PC here because I could use another word. That there are baseball fans that would still say, give me Joey Gallo instead of Luis Arraez in my lineup. And that drives me banana flipping sandwich.
Who says that?
Just read anti-social media. And I know Kevin tells me not to.
I'm not doing that.
Kevin tells me not to. But you see these asinine takes, and I'm like, okay, we live in a simulation. There's no way that we can't just all agree that would be that stupid thing to say.
No, I think, and the real key, honestly, and Luis is a great story, but with the Marlins, Jorge Soler, I think, has really solidified that team, because without him, they have zero power. I don't know how they're scoring runs. Their pitching is phenomenal, and I think it's something we saw coming last year and even the year before that. But
Yuri Perez, man.
Yuri Perez, as you know, he's injured, but Edward
27
Cabrera,
innings. 27. His last 27 innings, he's allowed one run.
Yeah, I mean, but he was a highly touted guy. But they've been building that rotation even since like Jeter has been a part of that team. I mean, that they've slowly they got Luzardo, so they have the reason why they're winning a lot of one-run games. It's not a coincidence. It's because they have really, really good pitching. It's not a coincidence that Harold Ramirez has a high BABIP because he makes contact so damn much. It's like, you have to read into who the player is and what they do and what the team is doing and understand why things are like that and why are the Rays a 500 team in one-run games, because their bullpen is 500 on whether they're going to show up that day or they're going to pound sand a little bit. And to be fair to the bullpen, they've actually, I think, over the course of this past month, pluck out a couple of games, they've genuinely have been a lot better.
Way better than May.
Yeah. So
way better, night and day.
Correct. Yeah. They've kind of flipped it a little bit. I still think that's a little bit more of a regression to the mean versus everything's okay. Right. I don't think they were that bad, but their underlying numbers still aren't great. Like, they're not striking out people. I think Big Spot Bob is better, even though he had that rough outing against the Orioles where he gave up a run. I say rough outing. He gave up a run against the Orioles. He gave up a run against the Athletics. And those were high leverage situations. But I think we all are a fan of Stevenson. He adds something to that bullpen, and I still think that they need a power arm. They need a guy to come in who can pump 99 to 100 and just get me strikeouts in a high leverage, oh crap scenario, first and second, one out. I need a K. This is who I need. So,
well, Kevin?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm going to make an executive decision and scrap baseball trivia and name that war. We'll save that for Friday's episode. Sans Evan Klosky here just got me on a roll here. All this Luis Arraez talk, I had to look up his Savant page of all things. His strikeout rate is 5.2%, which I guess isn't all that surprising when you're batting damn near 400. But in this era of pitching, it's quite remarkable. But Luis Arraez aside, a couple other stats and numbers I want to throw to you all before we end the program. Taj Bradley gets his, I believe, first quality start of his big league career against the Orioles. He now has 71 strikeouts in 49 innings. That is an elite strikeout rate for a rookie, no less, who has to fill the shoes of a Jeffrey Springs and or Drew Rasmussen. And I don't know if it's too early or if I'm going way too off base and suggesting maybe he needs to be thrown or looped into the American League Rookie of the Year conversation if he keeps this up and going forward. That's one thing. The other thing is Mr. Randy Arozarena gets his 14th homer of the year and is halfway to 100 RBIs. He has 50 through 77 games. And that list of guys who have knocked in 100 in a Rays or Devil Rays uniform is very, very slim. So,
Isaac Paredes has 49.
Yeah, and it is remarkable that, again, one of the big storylines, the Rays offense, Randy, we knew what he could do. He's definitely elevated his game to the next level. But Isaac Paredes perennially going under the radar, not just offensively, but defensively as well. And when we look at the numbers at the end of the year, I wouldn't be all that surprised if Paredes, A, leads the team in homers, B, leads the team in RBIs, and has like 100 fewer at-bats than the highest guy on the team.
Yeah, I mean the real debate, I think, if he stays the way that he's doing, is he looking at an extension in the offseason? Is that a guy? I mean, he's super. What is he? 23, 24?
I think 23, but let me check.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, this is
24.
This is a classic deal. Buy out some free agent years, get him on the cheap, give him a little pay bump. Thanks for doing business with you. So,
and you could probably get him relatively cheap in comparison to, you can't be giving him a contract larger than Yandy Diaz.
No. It would be a Brandon like until the third, fourth year, you're actually gonna get like $8 million. Like it would be something like that because Yandy Diaz was already, proven, quote unquote.
Right.
Isaac Paredes, there's still a little bit more risk than there was with Yandy, but that would be sexy talk right there. Isaac Paredes with an extension because smooth hands. He can play third. He can play second base. He's also played first. Am I misremembering? No, he plays first too.
No, he's played some first.
Yeah. So I mean, a versatile guy that can lead the team in home runs. Yeah, that's good.
My guess is long term, when Yandy probably gets through this contract, if you sign him to a contract like that, he will move from third to first. We got to have discussions of where Curtis Meade goes. What do you do with him? This offseason, first we got to get through this season because it's so intriguing of what's going to happen in the offseason. Like, let's say the Rays win the World Series, right? I think there's a legitimate scenario where Randy Arozarena is traded in the offseason. And they're going to get spicy. They're going to really.
I think that would be a major mistake, man.
I think it's a possibility. Again, it's cashing out early. His walk rate is extremely high. Are you going to bank on the patience again? Are you going to pay him the big time money? Not to mention, I love Randy. He's not a great fielder. He's not. He doesn't get a good jump. He makes like fabulous plays in the field in big time moments, but overall he's not a great fielder. I think in that first Orioles game, there was one that shot into the gap. A better left fielder makes that play, and he was 2 steps behind it. So to me, with the Rays, who really value athleticism, who have all this talent in the minors, really good talent, it just smells like cashing out. If they win the World Series, they really are going to give themselves sort of this. They're not going to like do a Marlins where they sell everybody, but I think they're good. I could see a reshuffling of bring up the young guys, restock the farm system. We won our World Series. Let's make ourselves set up for another 10 years and just get everything hunky-dory. But again, I'm not suggesting the Rays are going to sell Randy, but there are a lot of avenues for this team to go down, including the trade deadline, which, for me, I can't wait to have this conversation with you in a month to really dig our nails into what this is going to look like. Let it be known, the Rays are usually not a trade deadline team. They're a team that likes to get deals done a little bit before the deadline. They don't like being under this like take it or leave it scenario. They like to get in early. We saw that with Stevenson already. I'm sure they're still having talks. They like to do these deals on their terms. And as it gets closer to the deadline, I think the likelihood of them pulling the trigger on something goes down a little bit. Think back to Nelson Cruz. That was not a deadline deal. That was done a little bit beforehand. So, I know what the trade deadline date is, but for Rays fans, think a couple of weeks before that. That's, to me, when the Rays really get cooking on something.
Great stuff. I don't want to go on a tangent here, but hot take, Isaac Paredes could be a trade candidate at some point, not this season, maybe next season or the year after with Kyle Manzardo, Curtis Meade, and others as well.
Correct. There's a lot of guys, I think, especially with this offense this year. Look, and this will be my last thing. Last year, they were not as bad, and I said this entering the year, like they were not as bad as they were offensively. I don't think they're as good as they're showing this year offensively. I think we're getting one extreme, and now we're getting the other extreme. And then next year would maybe provide a happy medium of And to me, I don't know who they view in there as a sell high candidate, but there are a handful of them. Now, it could be sell high or you are selling too soon. But that's what makes everything sort of interesting. And the only reason why you can think like this is because they have about 4 or 5 dudes who are highly touted, who are ready for the majors. Between Aranda, between Manzardo, Mead,
Caminero is in Double-A.
Caminero
knocking, baby. He's knocking.
To me, Caminero's probably gonna, by the end of this season, assuming continues to do what he's kind of doing in Double-A, which he's transitioned fairly nicely there. I would imagine he's going to launch as a top 10 prospect by the time we get maybe into the offseason and people start reshuffling these lists. I would be shocked if he wasn't one out of the Rays, 1 or 2. It just all depends on really what Mead does when he kind of gets healthy again. So, and I think we won't really see Mead until after the All-Star break, I believe. So with that injury, so this year is kind of tough. It's been a little bit of a wash for Mead, but someone who I do like, friend of the pod for you guys, Blake Hunt.
Yeah, he's killing it, man. Good for him.
You know, he might be the one part of that Blake Snell trade that
Hopefully.
Like, he was maybe 4 on the list of guys you brought in that trade, and he might actually be the one that sticks around because this team does need a long-term catching option. And man, he's been crushing it in Durham. Had a 3-homer game, so that's great to see.
Yeah, and I would go out on a limb and say that if you haven't listened to that interview that we did with him, go back and listen to it. And I think after you listen to it, you'll discover and find out that he has to be the most cerebral, intuitive member of the Rays system, their minor league system. And 20 years from now, we're going to be saying Rays manager Blake Hunt. Rays general manager Blake Hunt, something along those lines. Anyway, all right, Evan, we appreciate it as always. Know we're running long. Give your elevator speech for what you do and why people should follow you in your work.
Head over to my Twitter, which is right there on the screen, at eKlosky, WTSP. I throw a lot of Rays tidbits out pretty much every day. And you're going to get that for at least another month until Bucks training camp comes. And then you're going to see a little bit more Bucks, and then the Lightning will get involved. But 10tampabay.com, we also have you covered, everything in local sports. And right now, because it's the summer, it's very heavy Rays. So this is a great time to, get to our product, look at what we're doing, watch us, and enjoy. Because if you're listening to this podcast and you're a big Rays fan, you will certainly get more Rays than you'll find on a national outlet.
There it is. We appreciate it as always. And for the listeners out there, thank you for listening to us. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we will talk to you tomorrow.